Oh, I can make a TikTok video.
We are live, and my son is making noise about wanting to do a TikTok video, of course. Oh, yeah. All right, this is Dr. G, and today I want to talk about something that's very interesting and hits home for me. I know it hits home for others as well. And that is, what do you do when your whole business is based on being on a stage in front of large groups of people? And now we have the stay at home order, and you cannot do that anymore. Well, you know what they say, when you are given lemons, you have to make lemonade, right? So that is one way in which you can approach situation. So you could potentially just sit back and say, oh, well, I guess I can't do this now because of the situation. And oh, well, I guess there's no way for me to make any income. Or you could look at this as a pivot point. And then that will allow for you to have the grit, to have the resilience, to have the ability to be able to pivot, change courses, and come out at the end of this triumphant, thriving. And so I want that for you. And I know I'm talking right now to speakers, right? But even if you are not a speaker, even if you have another type of business, definitely now is the time to be thinking about how you can alter your business to reach your customers however and wherever they are. So now they're at home. So figuring out a way in which you can reach your customers at home. Hey, Diane, thanks for joining. And so, what do I mean by that? Okay, but Dr. G, I'm not a speaker. I am a hairstylist. Okay, well, I know of a story. Actually, I interviewed this young lady on a podcast not too long ago, and she was saying that her hairstylist did a did a video on how do you maintain a short hairstyle and how do you maintain your color so that, like people like me who have, the grays in there, how do you maintain the color during this time when you can't get to the salon? And I mean, that is great because now she's providing great value to her clients such that they don't feel like they're alone and they're not stressing out about something in addition to what is already happening. And that's value directly to her client, her customer. So no matter what you're doing, you can definitely pivot, reinvent, and figure out a way in which you can reach your people, reach your tribe. So that brings me to the whole speaker thing, right? So this is like high season for speaking. It literally is. Like all the big conferences are happening and you're getting on all the stages that are larger and you're just reaching people and you're building your brand for the remaining portions of the year and you're building your brand for the subsequent year's engagements. And so this is prime time. And of course, we're at a screeching halt and for great reason. And as a physician, I am wholeheartedly behind the stay at home order because I've seen what devastation this process has caused families, individuals. And I honestly believe that if we can flatten the curve however we can by staying home, then let's do it. I'm all for that. But I'm also being real. Like, I looked at all the engagements that got canceled and I kind of was like, oh, I had a pit in my stomach, like, oh my goodness, really? And then I had to pause and just say, okay, it is always going to be about your mindset. It is always going to be about how you perceive things, right? So basically, you see a problem. And instead of complaining about the problem, you have to start to think outside the box so that you can actually help. Oh, hey, Dr. Witsi. You have to think outside the box so that you can reinvent yourself, so that you can be thriving during this time, right? Yes, the economics are interesting, but that doesn't mean that you cannot deliver content, that you cannot deliver services, that you cannot be there for your tribe so that everybody can rise together, right? There's no reason why that can't happen. So All right. So there I was, sitting like thinking, oh goodness, what am I going to do now? Right. No more stages. So I just started talking to fellow speakers and trying to figure out like, well, what are you guys doing? Right. And so really what came out of that is the fact that there are other options, right? And so one option I was totally sitting on. Oh, hey, Liana, thanks for joining. One option I was totally sitting on, like totally oblivious to it, not even considering this option, but virtual stages. All right. What are virtual stages? So one virtual stage is a podcast. I have a podcast. I host a podcast. But I didn't even think of, why don't I get on other people's podcasts? Like, why don't I just start getting on podcasts and just, getting the word out there, talking about fear like I love to, and just like getting, do the things that I would do on stages, but do it through podcasts and reach networks that way. So number one pivot point was getting on podcasts, right? The number two pivot point was actually getting on virtual stages like virtual summits, developing opportunities for myself and others to be able to get in front of audiences and share awesome content. So I had the honor and privilege of being in a virtual summit this very week. And I talked about that yesterday when I was doing my Women Crush Wednesday, and I was highlighting Miss Sophania Porter because she established a virtual summit and she brought together 10 amazing women who are in the medical field or the health related fields. And, it was a great opportunity for each one of us because we're all speakers. We don't have physical stages currently. And here we could be in this venue and share our content, reach audiences without them having to ever leave their homes. So fabulous, right? So podcasts, got to get my finger on the camera here. Podcasts, virtual stages through summits and virtual Zoom calls, things like that. Then the third way is by doing a webinar, right? So if you have an area of expertise that you normally talk about and you're not getting on stages, why not do a webinar about that same thing? Do a webinar, put that content out there, get people to come to it, get them to benefit from your expertise, and boom, you have completely pivoted. You have completely course corrected, and you ultimately will be thriving, right? Because yes, there are a number of conferences that have made the pivot point and have actually gone to the virtual stage instead of the physical stage. But the majority of conferences do not have the infrastructure set up to do that very quickly. And so what has happened is instead they have either postponed or canceled. So, okay. So, Liana says, I've been speaking nationally and pivoting from the audience I normally speak to. Need to expand my tribe. I've been speaking in the Christian evangelical homeschool world. I don't have to tell you the business in this world. Yes, absolutely. That's so true. But you are definitely out there. You are looking to pivot and provide value. And then you're going to offer online classes. Fabulous. So that's another way, right? So you could do webinars. You can offer online classes. You can do a course. I mean, the world does not have to stop getting your value just because everybody's staying home. The world expects the same amazing value from you. And, if we let our fear, if we let everything around us kind of like just stop us from pushing forward and uplifting others as we do so, then we are at fault. And if we do that, let me tell you what happens. I'm going to share this slide from a talk I gave the other day. So first of all, I don't know if you guys know, but I love Star Wars. Love Star Wars. And I feel like Star Wars is the bomb.com. And it is a manifesto of how to face fear, how to deal with fear, what fear does to you. And Master Yoda is like the granddaddy of the grandmaster of this particular genre, right? So he says very clearly, fear is a path to the dark side, right? So what is the dark side for us? The dark side for us is literally letting fear stop us from giving to the world, stop us from doing what we need to do in order to make this time a better time for all involved, right? And what does fear lead to? It leads to anger because we tend to feel very anxious. We tend to feel very upset when we feel like, oh, look at this. I'm in a situation now where I have to stay home and I can't do what I normally do to make money. And now I am so upset because I can't make money. And I just wish the place to open up right now. Now, that is not good, right? Because it is not rational thought. It is not thinking through the situation to say, okay, how can I abide by these guidelines and help and assist this particular problem from expanding by doing my part, which is staying home? And how can I do that and still have a livelihood, right? So the person that is thinking like that is not the person that is letting fear lead them to anger, right? Because what does anger lead to? Hate, right? And once we get to hate, then we know what happens next. Hate leads to suffering, right? So Master Yoda just dropped the bomb, okay? Master Yoda dropped the bomb. And so we cannot let fear do this to us. We cannot let the fear of, oh my goodness, I can't make a living now because I'm staying home. You cannot let the fear of, oh my goodness, I can't give my content to people because I'm staying home. They're staying home too. How are they going to get it? Like, you cannot let that happen. So no matter what business you're in, no matter what you're doing, you cannot let fear lead you to the dark side. You cannot let fear lead you to anger, hate, or suffering. What you have to do is acknowledge that you're concerned, acknowledge that you are, stressed. But then the next step is, how can I pivot? How can I reinvent myself? How can I make it such that I'm still providing value and I am still uplifting those around me? And in turn, how can I take that and turn it into an income source, which is definitely doable. So I hope that these tips helped. I'm going to take Yoda off for a second here. I hope that these tips helped. And yes, Brent, I know I had you at Star Wars. Oh my goodness. We are here, man. We're here. And so, I hope that these tips help, because I would love for you all to be encouraged to think about ways in which you can take what you would normally do outside your home and figure out a way to provide that to your tribe virtually. And so, of course, I'm going to plug for podcasts because, that's my love. But you can do other things, courses, webinars, get on other people's podcasts, get on other people's summits and chat if this is what you do. If you have something to share, if you have a skill that you want to share, you can create a course, you can create a webinar, you can create content that you can share. So I wish you guys all the best. And oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'd love to explore that more with you too, Brent. Absolutely. And so you know the deal. This is Dr. G, and I hope that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.